leaders rise to the top. That's what happened in Annapolis before we ever got to Philadelphia. Leaders rise to the top. And in Utah, we have the opportunity to be leaders among leaders. We have the opportunity, knowing what we know, to be leaders among leaders. Now, in the process, in our Federalism Commission, we're going to be going through how we carry what we do into a convention of states to propose amendments, that we have our own strategy and we choose our delegates. Imagine the delegates we could choose. Senator Mike Lee, good representative from St. George, a good representative from Grantsville, distinguished legal minds. Our Senate president, who sat right up there in this assembly of state legislatures and conducted himself so well with esteem among people across the nation. Our young, scrappy, and hungry speaker here, who would go and battle for our state and the rights of our state. Think of the delegates we could send. Now, as we send delegates, they're our agents. They are agents of the state. Like any agency relationship, we can call our agents home. We give them specific instructions. And in fact, we already have a law in Utah. If our agents violate the scope of the agency that we give them going to a convention, it's a crime in Utah. This is a serious matter, but yet the impacts that we have in our nation are also tremendously serious. The representative from Salt Lake mentioned our oath. He mentioned that the original convention was somehow run away in Philadelphia. Nothing could be further from the truth, because they didn't have a constitution at the time. They had an Articles of Convention that was not working. They met as states under their plenary sovereign power as states. And in fact, James Madison says the power of the convention ought in strictness to be determined by an inspection of the commissions given the members of their respective constituents. He then spends the balance of Federalist 40 proving that the delegates from all the states properly followed their directions. To think that the first act of our country was somehow ill-gotten or inappropriate, I find that to be misguided. We have the opportunity to discuss whether or not to propose amendments on the jurisdiction of the federal government. The representative from Draper said that that's so open-ended. It's not. It's a one-way street to discuss limits, not up. The 0% Constitution has given us increased jurisdiction of the federal government for 100 years. And we'll continue to get increased jurisdiction of the federal government under the 0% Constitution. Under the 100% Constitution, we get to discuss limits and restore that balance, which Madison said in Federalist 45, that the balance, when they divided power, was to be few and defined at the federal level and numerous and indefinite, closest to the people. Imagine the opportunity to discuss limits, to get back to that balance that Washington said, if it be wrong in any particular, let it be changed by an amendment, but not by usurpation. And then we also get to discuss whether or not life tenure on the Supreme Court. When we have 4-4 now, we don't know what the Second Amendment looks like next year. We don't know what marital relationships look like next year. We don't know what education looks like next year. We don't know what agencies exercising their power over water and power and our energy looks like next year. Because that's where our Supreme Court sits right now. Imagine the opportunity to discuss limits. Representatives, we have the handbook. We have the handbook. Men that we believe were raised up by God, who said by divine providence they established a more perfect union with the Constitution. And in that handbook it says that we have the power. We, this body, state legislators, we have the constitutional power to maintain the system. Think of your first official act. First official act, I remember standing right there. And I remember raising my hand and solemnly swearing that I would uphold and defend the handbook. And I wondered what power I had as a state representative to uphold and defend the Constitution. It's right there. It's right there. In fact, George Washington, the father of the country, said, if in the opinion of the people, the distribution or modification of the constitutional powers is ever in any particular wrong. We've heard a lot of discussion about how the distribution and modification of the constitutional powers is in almost every particular wrong. He said, if, in the opinion of the people, they're ever in any particular wrong, let it be changed by an amendment in the way the Constitution designates. But let there be no change by usurpation. Don't just do it. Don't just let the federal government do it. That's how free government is destroyed. And they said to create that protection, we first divide government. We have to divide government, and then we have to limit government. And Madison, in the very first Congress, introducing the very first amendment to the Constitution under Article 5, said the state legislatures will jealously and closely watch the operations of this national government, and the state legislatures will be able to resist with more effect every assumption of power better than any power on earth can do. Because the state legislatures are the sure guardians of the people's liberty. If we fail to act, how do we answer to those that the good representative presenting the bill put life, fortune, sacred honor on the line? We can redeclare independence right now with a document, not a musket or a pitchfork. We can reestablish the divisions and limits of power right now without a war and a battle under the rule of law. The handbook is the answer. It's right there. How should we suppose that divine providence that established this Constitution will continue to bless and favor us if we don't use what he gave us? It's like a drowning man praying and the boat comes. They say, no, I'll wait for God. Here's the life preserver. I'll wait for God. This is the liberty preserver right here.